I got it in 4K, y'all.
Now, are you okay?
Hey guys, Rob here with McDojoLife, and the man you just got done watching being launched like one of the little people in Wolf of Wall Street goes by the name of Sean. And this walking piece of roid rage with a tiny penis complex goes by the name of Joshua Hammond. The incident took place on Saturday, June 22nd at a wrestling tournament in Concord, North Carolina. Side note, Concord, North Carolina is the setting place for Danny McBride's movie The Foot Fist Way, which is, ironically enough, only an hour away from the Key and Peele skit that they talk about Tackle and Grapple.
High Point, North Carolina. Tackle and Grapple.
Coincidence? I don't know, but back to the story. That footage has recently gone viral, so I decided to learn a little bit more about what happened by going directly to the source, and I interviewed the referee. Check it out.
My name's Sean. I grew up in Pennsylvania, wrestling. I always say, came out of diapers and put a headgear on. I started at 4 years old, and we wrestled year round. Graduated high school in Pennsylvania. Wrestled Division I in college at Boston University. I'd won an open freestyle championship in my 20s, so I was still involved even after high school. I coached high school wrestling for 15 years. Well, high school for 13 years. I coached I coached kids wrestling at a club at American Top Team here, and I've been an official for now 8 years. So those are my wrestling credentials.
What event was that video at?
So this event was what we call a Wildcat tournament, which is an independent summer tournament, not sanctioned by any, USA Wrestling or AAU or any governing body, not affiliated with school. It's just basically some individual or a couple of guys started a wrestling tournament. You pay an entry fee, and then they call some refs and you show up. So it was for kids and middle schoolers. I actually got a call. I happened to wake up at like 6 a.m. that morning, that Saturday, and look over at my phone, and there's a text from Chan, who's the ref that jumps in the middle of that thing. And it says, "Hey, you want to call a tournament today?" And I was like, "Sure, where is it?" Because I'm good to go. There's nothing I'd rather be doing on a weekend in the summer than ref. And so he's like, "Oh, it's in Concord." So I wasn't even supposed to be there that day, but I got a call. They needed one more guy, and I was there.
That sounds like that movie Clerks.
Absolutely.
I wasn't supposed to be here today.
I'm not even supposed to be here today.
Not even supposed to be here today.
Exactly.
During the day, had you had any other issues on the mat?
No, I don't remember anything. Just a typical tournament. I definitely did not have any interaction whatsoever with that guy or that wrestler. They hadn't not been on my mat all day. And, sometimes you'll hear about, the refs will talk to each other and say, this coach has got a warning, or this guy's, keep an eye on this guy. He's out of hand. Nothing. I had no mention of him prior to that, no interaction with him prior to that match.
What I'd like to do is, if we could, go from the very beginning of the match and to your best recollection from the very beginning of the match to the very end of the match. Give us your best play-by-play.
So just to start, the only thing that happened prior to that, they were up. So we start on our feet.
Hey, remember, head down. Be ready to re-attack. It's coming. You gotta be ready. Go. Snap. Now chase the tag. Go. Hey, Tone. Snap off that shot. Just coming forward. Snap. You gotta get first.
Red shot for a takedown, and the wrestler in white, who's green, the green wrestler, kind of sprawls, but there's some contact. He lowers his head, and there's some contact with the red wrestler's head or headgear or hair. At that point, this is the first interaction that I've had with this dad. He says he poked him in the eye. So there's the first thing that happens is that takedown. As he's going down, the wrestler in the white singlet reaches for his eye, and they go out of bounds, and it was certainly a takedown. And immediately that dad comes over, and he's saying he poked him in the eye. And look, sometimes I have missed an eye poke. You know, if you just look away for a second and there's an eye poke. And I said to him, I didn't see it. And you can see he gets frustrated about that. And if your kid gets poked in the eye and the ref misses it, you have a right to be upset. As you stand in the corner of the mat, you have a right to be upset. But if you look at the video, there's no eye poke. But I called for injury time, and his mom and dad were right there tending to him. And I walked to the table and told him start the injury time. He ended up taking the full 90 seconds. In wrestling, you get 90 seconds for injury time total, and you get basically two timeouts. You can call for injury time twice for a cumulative total of 90 seconds, or you can take it all at once. He took the full 90 seconds. So after the takedown, they're going to reset with white singlet on bottom, red singlet on top. And there's a bit of a scramble, and they move towards the wall. And I have to say, that mat was entirely too close to the wall. Okay. In high school, that is not happening. I would not call a match where the edge of the circle is this far from the wall. I'm not. I'm going to say, move the mat. In this sort of independent tournament, I don't have that power. I stopped the whistle as they approached that wall. And there's a little bit of an exchange where right at the wall there, where the top wrestler, I think, pushed off of him a little bit.
Oh, he mad.
And you can see the bottom wrestler come back to the center and just kind of put his hands down on the mat like, okay, I'm ready to go. It's very common for wrestlers to get aggressive, and aggressive is fine within the rules. But it's very common for that motion, for people to come back and be like, and I have no problem with that. But I'm watching them. I'm aware that this young man is is frustrated. I'm going to keep an eye on. When they restart is when he does that inversion, reaches back for the leg, and I circle around, and the top wrestler kind of stays behind him and bends his leg, and his leg is around the bottom wrestler's body. And that's when the bottom wrestler has a hold of the top wrestler's right foot with his left hand, and he's lifting it. And this is a point where, even in high school, you hear mom and dad and coaches saying, watch the knee, watch the knee. And so we're sensitive to that position, that very same position. You crank it up, your knee goes this way, not this way. So we're sensitive to that. And I had circled around, and I could see it, and I called it as soon as I saw it. And especially with the kids, I'm going to make that stoppage a little bit sooner than with the high-level high school kid. But so I stopped the match, and then I stood up, and I'm walking towards him, and the bottom wrestler is still holding, I blow the whistle, he's still holding his foot up, and his other hand, he kind of looks at me, and he's like what? And that's when I said, let go of the leg, okay? And that's my job, okay? My job is to keep the wrestler safe, and I blow the whistle. Your job right there is stop wrestling. Let go of whatever hold. You're choking him, your arms behind his, whatever it is, let it go. And he, for a second or two, he didn't let go. And so that's why I raised my voice a bit from as I'm walking in, said, let go of the leg.
Let go of his leg.
And on the video, you can hear in the back, and the dad is already charging the mat. And I walked over and I said, when I blow the whistle, you need to stop. And I said it about that loud. And that's when I get launched from the side, back, whatever.
Oh!
So I certainly wasn't expecting it. That hasn't happened to me before. When I got up, like a couple of people have asked, well, what were you thinking? And what I was thinking was really nothing. I stood up and I saw Sean coming over, who's the ref who comes running in. He was there in a split second and got in front of the dad. And I point over and I said, he's gone. I said to Sean, I said, he's gone. And then I take a few steps and then you can hear how angry I am. Okay. I was angry, but I was calm. All right. And I said, you're gone. And then I say, make your way outside. So after they were removed or they walked out, you can see I walked back to the center and the other wrestler was standing there in the middle. We were able to continue the match. That wrestler in white could have come back and continued the match despite what his parents did. So we don't penalize the child for the actions of the parents or the coach. Okay. You can get a team point in a high school match or something for a coach misconduct or unsportsmanlike from the bench. This is just an individual tournament. The child was not penalized and should not be penalized for the actions of the parents. So we were ready to go. But this young man did not have any coaches there. He just had his two parents. So there was no one else to coach him. Both parents had been ejected. And so he followed him out. There's a rule that says if you leave the wrestling area, you're disqualified. And so that's why the match ended. So I stood there in the middle and watched him walk out the door. And then I pointed to the wrestler in red who won.
So what happened afterwards?
So this was the end of the day. And there were maybe 2 or 3 matches after this one. And I had to stay and finish the tournament. But right after the tournament, I called the sheriff or called the police. And the sheriff came out. Actually, me and the other refs went and got some wings, waiting for the sheriff. And they all went home and I stayed there waiting for the sheriff for, let's just say it was a couple hours before the sheriff showed up. But I had found out that this dad the family was staying there at that location, the lodge or whatever. And the sheriff showed up and said, well, I said, I want to press charges. I showed him the video and he said he can't do anything because he didn't see it. And I'm like, here it is. And he said, well, that's just their protocol. You have to go down and take out charges at the sheriff's departments. So I went down to the magistrate and took out the charges later that night, probably 2.5, 3 hours after the event. And then I waited for them to come serve the warrant. And they didn't show up to my knowledge that evening, although it was my understanding that he was was staying at that hotel. So after that, the next day I posted that video. And that very same day, the sheriff from the county where he lives messaged me on TikTok. He said, we know this guy and we'd be glad to go pick him up for you, but we need a warrant because the guy lives in Virginia. It's North Carolina case or North Carolina charge. So he would need an extradition warrant. So I called the DA's office in Cabarrus and I said, what's going on with this? I know the guy lives out of state. What's happening? They didn't get him while he was here. He left the state. What's going to happen? And she said, well, the DA said, well, let me call the sheriff here and see if they'll extradite him. And so there's actually a decision that needed to be made as to who's going to pay for him to be transported back here. So the sheriff in Cabarrus County decided that this was a case that they would be willing to pay for him to be bussed back. And so they created an extradition warrant, and then they sent that up to Tazewell County in Virginia. And the sheriff texted me back. At this time, I have the sheriff's phone number. He texted me back and said, I got the warrant. I'll let you know when it's served. And then, so he was arrested up there on the extradition warrant, and he was taken into custody in Tazewell, and he was given a $1,000 bond, which he paid. And one of the conditions of that release is that he turn himself in North Carolina. If they wouldn't have served him with that extradition warrant, or if the DA in Cabarrus would not have issued that extradition warrant with the cooperation of the sheriff in Cabarrus, then it would have just sat there until this guy returned to North Carolina and got pulled over for speeding or whatever. But since they got him on this extradition warrant, the terms now are that he must turn himself in, or he'll be taken into custody up there, and then they'll bring him down.
Do you know if he turned himself in?
In North Carolina, no. As of a couple days ago, he has not turned himself in.
What kind of comments did you get?
The comments are overwhelmingly positive and supportive. You did the right thing. Good job, ref. Good call. We need more people like you. That's a real man. And those are the ones I appreciate, of course. The other ones I don't listen to, but I would say 99% are positive. Then you have a number that are, the tough guys that are, I would have kicked his ass. I'd have dropped him right there. Saying that I should have gone and retaliated. Then there's a very small sliver that are saying, you're awful. You deserved it. You shouldn't have got in that kid's face. But that is just, it's 0.1% of the tens of thousands of comments, or hundreds. I don't know how many comments, but very, very small percentage is sticking up for this guy. That shows how level-headed most people are.
If you had anything to tell anybody out there about this situation, what would it be?
Wrestling is a combat sport. And we step on the mat, just like in jiu-jitsu, you respect the mat. That's the place where two people come together consensually and they engage in a combat with rules. And, all the sports have rules. All combat sports have rules. But the combat is on the mat. And when you're outside of the ring or off of the mat, you can get as excited as you want, and you can yell and scream. And that's part of the fun, is to root for your wrestler or your fighter, and let out your stress, and your anxiety, and in a positive way. Okay. And you cheer when you win, you shake hands when you lose, but everybody tried hard and everybody fought as hard as they could within the rules. When people who don't understand that get so into it that they can't distinguish between the combat going on in the ring and themselves, that's when you have these types of problems. I think that part of it is this guy was inexperienced, the dad. any wrestler would have known that position with that knee. Any wrestler or coach would have known that for me to stop it right there on a potentially dangerous was the right call. I'm looking out for the kid's safety. I'm looking out for the bottom or top wrestler's knee. And even if you disagreed, there's a way to bring that forward to the ref. And you come to the table and you say, hey, what are you doing? Why did you blow the whistle? In high school, you can't do that. You can't challenge the ref's judgment. Middle school and kids wrestling, come over, and it can be a teaching moment. I'll explain the call to you. No problem. Come over to the table. Why did you call that? You could yell, why did you call that? And I'm going to say, oh, I'll tell you why, and I'll explain it. That's how you handle that. A good coach would not have said a word because that's a normal, common call. But I think when these people that, for whatever reason, are wanting to live vicariously through their child and don't understand the sport, get to the point where they cross that line, that's unfortunate. That happens too much. And in this situation where a crime was committed, an act of physical violence occurred, that individual needs to answer for that. That individual needs to be held accountable so that other people, other parents, other coaches will see that, and maybe other people who aren't as experienced in the sport will see that, and they will recognize, oh, there's consequences. I'm not supposed to do that. There's a line that I crossed. It's literally the circle of the mat that was crossed. He came out. It's like someone, a trainer jumping over the ropes in a boxing match. Like, you don't come out here, But when people see that this happened and that there was consequences, hopefully that turns into, maybe some people will learn something. Maybe some parents will learn where the boundaries are. Maybe this guy will learn a boundary. I don't know. Maybe that young man, the child who was wrestling, will look and be like, you know what? My dad made a mistake. And maybe he'll learn from it. I don't know if that dad's going to learn from this, but hopefully something positive comes from this. Hopefully by me keeping my cool, I taught some of those young people or some other officials or some coaches the right way to act in a situation like this.
Oh, and here's a little bit of the body cam footage from that arrest.
Howdy guys, how y'all doing? Doing well. Josh, you know what's going on, I guess, right, don't you?
Being arrested?
Yeah.
Hopefully that answered a lot of your questions that you had about that incident. But now it's time for my question, which brings us to the question of the day, brought to you by X Marshall. Be sure to answer the question of the day in the comment sections below, so that way you can be entered for a chance to win a $100 gift voucher to be used at xmarshall.com. And hey, maybe you don't win. That's okay. You can still use McDojo10 promo code upon checkout, so that way you can get 10% off any of your purchases at xmarshall.com. Since this seems to be a reoccurring theme of parents walking onto the field and or mat with any sport that involves kids, how can we put a stop to this type of incident? What do you think? I'm curious to hear what you have to say in the comment sections below. As always, thank you all for the likes, shares, comments, subscriptions, memberships. Check out McDojoLife.com. Keep the martial arts legit.
My baby got robbed the other day by degenerates. So she wanted to learn some new form of this self-defense. So she did her research and perused it online and found this dude said he could move shit with his mind. He called himself Seafood Paul Zimmerman. He got a dojo with a strip mall near Cinnabon. Now she spends all day trying to